we remind everyone there is a charity walk on October 13th, and it will be at the peak and organized by the Children's Heart Foundation of Hong Kong. So we ask everyone to support the Heart to Heart charity walk on that day to help fundraise for them. Okay. Anyone else is joining? Okay, great. Okay, I think we can start now. This Zoom will be recorded, so okay. So welcome everyone to another Zoom talk by experts by One Sports Hong Kong. Hello everyone, this is Janet and I am tonight's host. So we have this very good question from Coach Dan's webinar from last week, and a parent asked, what are the different tennis tournament platforms and which one should players focus more on? Okay, and I'm very sure that a lot of parents and young players wish to learn more from our speakers. And today we are very, very happy to have a youth players parent, Ken, who share with us some of his experience and local tournaments, and also a professional WTA player and a tennis coach, Adithya, who share with us the overseas tournament platforms. Welcome. Okay, so before we start, I would like to remind everyone that One Sports is a tennis community that aim for everyone to share experience, to help, inspire, and look after one another as a supporting community. So I ask our audience to keep an open and positive mindset, and also to remind everyone to focus only on building your own pathways, as all players have different goals and development. So I hope everyone enjoy our topic tonight. May I also ask everyone to mute your speakers that so that our sharing can be clearly heard and without disturbance. Okay, and a Q&A session will be available later at the end of the Zoom talk. And be a little bit patient because there are quite a lot of slides today, so it might take longer than usual. So let me ask you a question. How many matches do you think are suggested for young players from 7 years old to 18 years old? And the first thing to know is, do you also know your own players or your child's tennis goal? Are they pursuing competitive tennis, recreational, or others? By knowing this, you will basically have an idea of the importance of match play and the quantity of match play that helps their development. And this is the table that is from the Voyager Tennis website, and I'm going to share it later. Okay, so as you see, and this level 1 player here, and this is for boys. Okay, and for level 1 players, which is who are players who play competitive tennis, basically boys and girls play the same quality or same amount of match plays that they suggest. And these are the column, okay, that this is the column that shows from age of 7 to age of 18. Okay, at the bottom. Okay, per year. How many matches are they suggested to play per year? Okay, and to date, okay, this is the accumulated match plays, number of match plays that are suggested. Okay, for example, at the age of 12, okay, you see that they are suggested to play 110 matches or match plays per year. Okay, and by that time, okay, and a very experienced youth player has already been playing around 480 matches. Okay, in order to build up a very good development profile for them. So, and these are the numbers for the girls. So, let us look at some tournaments that are available for players in Hong Kong, including the local ones and those from overseas. And we now have Mr. Ken, Declan's dad, okay, to introduce the tennis journey of Declan and your tennis background too. May I have Ken?
Thanks, Janet, for inviting me to share my son's tennis journey here tonight. As parents, all we can do is to provide the environment for children to progress and enjoy the sport. What level they end up with is really up to them. So as such, I have zero expectations on how far my son progresses in any of the competitions he enters. Before I start, can I ask you to save any questions towards the end, please? Janet, can you move to the next slide, please? So Declan is a fairly typical junior tennis player in Hong Kong. Started playing tennis recreationally from age 4, had 1 hour lesson per week, and wasn't too focused on tennis at all until age 11. Up until then, he was actually more into his football, which he still trains twice a week. And for my tennis background, I don't play tennis at all, other than with my son. The only sports I play competitively is squash, which I still compete regularly in the Hong Kong Squash League now. In doing so, I appreciate the demands both physically and mentally of any sporting activity. Next slide, please. Is that there should be a video. That's okay. We can.
We skip one. Was that the video?
Yeah, there should be a video of Declan when he was playing.
Yeah, this one.
Let's watch that first. So by the way, my son is the kid wearing the
So this one was when Declan was playing U10, right?
Yeah, U10 in 2020 when he was 9. So what you see is a fairly typical game of kids, age 9, running around and trying to keep the ball in.
Right.
Okay, if we go back to slide.
Okay.
Is that the one?
I think something messed up here.
We go back to the room. Let's, yeah, next one. Next one. So what was the key to getting from no ranking to rank top 50 in U14? I think he made a conscious decision to focus on tennis about 2 years ago. After he entered into more competition and felt the need to improve. As a result, he now has between 8 to 12 hours of tennis each week, comprising of the following. So 3 hours of group lessons, 1 hour of individual lesson, 2 to 3 hours of fitness stroke conditioning, and 2 to 4 hours of match play, depending on whether there's a competition or not. So his tennis ability improved, and by having more match experience under his belt, he got to where he is now. Next slide, please.
So,
Okay,
yes,
go on.
yes, please go on.
So this is all public information available on the HKCTA website. And what I want to say is basically your awarded points for HKCTA and a few other local competitions. How many points you get depends on the type of competition and how far you progress. And then your ranking is based on the points you acquire from your best 6 events in the past 52 weeks.
So the next slide,
Okay, so
the point. Sorry. Yes, go on, please.
can you get back to the slide? It's not showing on the screen.
Yep. Sorry.
I won't go through the points in detail. The trends to note are the further you progress in the competition, the more points you get, obviously. And then the second point is the more senior competition you play, the more points you get for the same progress you've made. So take U12, for example. You lost in the first round, you get 5 points. Versus if you lose in the quarterfinals, you get 10 points. Now, contrast that with U14. You get 48 points if you lose in the same quarterfinal stage. Next slide, please. So there are points being awarded in nationals and CRC Open qualifying rounds. The point in SCAA as well. The point to note is they're slightly higher than the usual Nissan competition.
So what you suggest is, besides the Nissan, the regular HKCTA matches, players are also suggested to play SCAA Open and CRC Open because they can gain higher points.
Yeah, that's correct. I'll cover that a bit more in the later slides.
Yes.
So for Declan, the benefits of accumulating ranking point is that he's now seeded in the qualifying draws. He gets to avoid other similarly strong players, meaning his chance to get into the main draw is easier and higher. So this becomes a feedback loop to get more ranking points in any competition he plays. Next one, please. So this is no video. There should be another more recent video of Declan. Yeah.
So this is when he played SCAA matches, and
Yeah,
that's U14. So
yeah,
3 years later from the previous uh, video.
so you can see he's better positions, he got more technique and rallying. So this was a warm-up in the recent SCAA Open in August.
Mm.
Next slide, please.
Yes.
So this is the part that you've been waiting for, the tips and shortcuts. So the next slide talk about playing up an H group. So I'll talk about the point 2 and 3 here. Firstly, it's no, go back to the previous slide, please.
Sorry, previous.
Yeah. I'll talk about the 2 points, the easier competition and playing CRC Open. So targeting easier competition, summertime, most of the top player may be traveling overseas for competition. So your potential opponents in the draw may be easier, which means you may get a higher chance of reaching the later stage of a competition, and hence more ranking points. The final point here, other competitions, there are two major junior competitions that offer good haul of points, the CRC Open and SCAA Open, which we had a table earlier, talk about the points. You're likely to play against the same group of peers as in Nissan, but the
Yes.
points haul are better than the Nissan competition for the same stage. I think the October CRC Open is still open for entry.
Yes.
So next slide, please. I'll talk about the table a bit later, but first a disclaimer. I'm a big believer in playing against better players. Obviously, the most likely outcome is you lose, but you learn so much more from the experience. And if you look at the ranking points table, you get roughly 3 to 4 times as many points by moving up one age group to U16 competition. So if you progress, for example, to round of 32 in U14, you get 12 points. It's roughly equivalent to winning U12 competition, which you get 15 points. If you have a decent run in, say, a U14 competition, you're likely to be a seeded player when you next play a U12 competition because of the points you acquire. I guess the next question is when to try this. So based on my son's experience, to try entering the U14 competition when my son is 11, but with an important caveat. You are likely to play against boys that are up to 2 years older. So you might lose 0-6, and your confidence may take a knock. So my son, who's 13, does enter U16 competitions, but not all the time. More to get experience playing stronger and older opponents. He knows that he's likely to get beaten in the first or second round, but if there's a clean draw, he might get to progress further. So, next slide.
So you mean that when Declan started his U14 journey, he was 11 years old. So at what point you see that he is ready to play an age group older?
I think if you think about U14, the first time we tried he was around 11. So I think it's just preparation for him because we know next year he'll be playing U14. So I wouldn't say he would be at U14 level at that point in time, but it gives him a bit of a taster of what it's like playing older kids.
Right. I do also have a coach that he suggests young players to play up one age group once a year when they are young. Of course, when they are like 14, 16, they can play however they want according to their level. But when they are young, like you said, they don't want to knock them off with their confidence. So maybe just give them a taste, give them a try once or twice a year.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes.
Okay, so this is my final slide. I hope the above can help you and your child's tennis journey with regards to HKCTA competitions. So in summary, it's about tennis ability, and the ranking points should reflect that. And also, don't forget to have fun playing tennis.
This is the most important. Um, a lot of us will get a little bit lost when it comes to ranking, accumulating points, and win and loss, right? Okay,
I
so
think you mentioned from the talk last week that in the matches that your child or yourself play, there should be a third, a third, a third. So one third you're expected to lose, one third you're expected to win, and one third it's kind of 50-50. So if that's proportion that your child experiencing, don't worry, that's the correct proportion.
right. So any questions for Ken before we move on to the next topic? Okay, let me get some. Thank you, Ken.
Thanks.
And we'll, and please also stay for the Q&A session at the end. Okay. Would the new joiners please turn your speakers to mute, please? Okay. All right. So let us continue. We just had Ken, who kindly shared Declan's tennis journey and how the HKCTA point system is like, and how um, he suggests players to um, um, get a bit more point or uprank yourself, and when to play, and what games that to play. Um, and okay, let's move on to our next topic. So let me ask Ken then. Do you think, in your opinion, is it um, more important to play local or overseas tournaments? What do you think?
Um, I think locally, this is every day, week in, week out. So it's definitely a convenience. But I think after playing now for close to 4 years, you kind of get usually the more or less the same opponents. So having, if you can structure some holiday around overseas tournaments, just to give you an idea what is out there, because the playing style could be very different. I mean, we were in the UK for the summer, and we run a lot of competition over the weekend. So my son Declan went, and the style is very different. So he has to adapt. otherwise. I mean, the court might not be as good. It's more windy. There's a lot of different factors. But having the extra experience, he come back and being a bit, I guess, more flexible when he puts his tennis back here.
Right. Yes, and I fully agree that there is an issue in Hong Kong that we don't have. We actually have a very small group of competitive players that we basically meet them all the time and playing against the same group of people all the time. So we give an option to go out and play and practice more. So, thank you, Ken. So let us come to how many, what local tournaments are available in Hong Kong. We have tournaments that are organized by the Hong Kong China Tennis Association, okay, HKTA, okay, including the Nissan tournaments, Junior League, Adult League, um, district, or some community tournaments that all the kids start playing since they start Red Ball. Okay, we also have SCAA, South China Tennis Open, and CRC, Chinese Recreation Club Open, that they are still accepting um, entries right now. So remember, we talked about the number of tournaments or match plays suggested for our young players. Okay, for example, um, like we said, a 12 years old young competitive players is suggested to play 110 match plays per year. Okay, so how do we accumulate that number, or how many tournaments are available locally? So HKCTA, and I'm talking about the Nissan tournaments, the series and championship nationals. Okay, it's around 7 or 8 tournaments per year. Okay, not including leagues and others. Okay, and SCAA have one tournament per year. Of course, there are a few entries that you can sign up, and CRC Open too, one tournament per year. So how do we accumulate enough match pace? We will do it, of course, during lessons. We can call up our friends for friendly matches, league, one sports, UTR, of course. That will help um, um, a lot of players to improve. Okay, and some overseas matches. And the benefit of playing local tournaments, okay, that will include local school applications, university applications, NTS, NTE entry by the Hong Kong CTA. And of course, if you have a really high national ranking, you may be selected to represent Hong Kong too, and many others. So, our next half at this Zoom talk, we'll talk about some overseas tournaments that include the CTJ, China Tennis Junior, okay, ATF, okay, and we mostly focus on ATF and ICF too, Asia Tennis Federation, and ITF, of course, the International Tennis Federation that organize a lot of international level tournaments, and also UTR. Again, what tournaments should players focus more on? Okay, let me now introduce our next speaker, Coach Adithya. Hi, Adi.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey. So, congratulations to you, to your new academy.
Thank you.
And I've heard that you have a really, really good start, and quite fully booked and super busy. Um, so, can I ask you a question? Is it in your point of view, is it more important to play overseas than local tournaments, or the other way around?
I think in my opinion, it really depends on which stage of your developmental process you're in. So if you're just starting out in that competitive world, I would say that it's good to build a foundation locally. It allows you to get a little taste of that competition environment and gauge an understanding of what is required in terms of maintaining that competition play. But once you do have that foundational base created, it's I think it's very important to step into that overseas league as soon as you can, because ideally that's where you want to be if you want to pursue competitive tennis in the future, but be it in college or professionally. Since your ultimate goal is to play overseas and professionally, I would say that it's more important once you've got a good start, to start focusing more on the overseas platforms.
Okay. Um, we will definitely get a little bit deeper on that. So, Coach Ardi, uh, hang on, hang on. So, you have been on an international tour for many years, and now you have opened up a new academy in Hong Kong, and to share your experience and your skills and Gurukul of tennis. Okay, can you tell us about your philosophy with Gurukul of tennis, and what do you want to bring to players in Hong Kong?
Yes, sure. So what we envision for this academy is to become a one-stop shop for all types of players, be it players who are just starting out, players who want to play recreationally, or players who want to pursue that high performance track. So we provide a holistic approach in terms of, really catering towards every single aspect that a player may need in order to further their career, including so obviously fundamentals and technicalities, but moving on to movements and fitness and nutrition and that mental training as well. And so I'm sure most of you know Coach Bhagat and Coach Rahul here, and they are known for their proficiencies in teaching fundamentals and technicalities. And so what we aim to do in Gurukul is really make that transition from dead ball drilling to live ball play. And that's where I come in. What I hope to provide the players of Hong Kong with is that transition into knowing how to construct points, games, sets, matches overall, and to really impart that knowledge that I've accumulated throughout the years playing professionally in terms of tactical play, strategizing, and also a big part of what I want to do with my players is really talk a lot about that mental aspect of the game, because while it's quite common for a lot of players, almost all players, to have good forehands and good backhands, what really differentiates the good from the great is that mental aptitude. And that's something that I really want to be focusing on with students of Gurukul.
Right, right. Um, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Your profile is really, really outstanding. Okay, you've got you played the WTA tour. Okay, which is the and your career high was WTA 278, and you've also got a WTN of 12.4,
Right.
which is really, really, we're talking about very high professional level. So, can you just give a little bit more background about yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, oh, well, going back to the very beginning, I started tennis when I was 3. I picked up a racket before I did a pen, so that's how really I started. Yeah.
Because
And
of your parents,
oh,
like are they players too?
well, actually, it's quite a funny story. So I have an older sister, and she was playing before I did. And so she was quite good. She was playing in Sri Lanka, and she would be winning all these trophies, and she would be bringing them back home. And I'd be looking at them, and they look so shiny and so alluring. And I'd be asking my mom, it's like, come on, could I get some? Could you please buy some for me? And then, obviously my mom had told me, it's trophies aren't something that you buy, it's something you earn. So
Right.
actually, exactly. So actually, the way I got into tennis was quite superficial, but once I started playing and swinging and hitting those shots, I really had an affinity for it, and I just fell in love. And ever since then, it's been a 20-year journey up till now.
Wow. So, and you started out in Hong Kong?
No, I was actually born in Sri Lanka, so I started out there, but I moved to Hong Kong when I was around 5. And so I was in Hong Kong for around 10 years, 10, 11 years. And during that period, I was with Coach Bhagat for the whole of that time.
The very
Um,
handsome one, right?
sorry?
The very handsome Coach Bucket.
Yes, yes, exactly. I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that. And
Right.
yeah, so I had been with him the whole of my time in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And under him, I was able to become the national champion in under 12. And I was also able to become number 1 in the ATF under 14 category for 2 consecutive years. I was able to achieve that number 1 ranking when I was 11 and held it for 2 more years. And then I started competing on the ITF junior circuit quite early when I was 13. Um, and then when I was around 15, 16, I moved to Spain full time in order to pursue a professional tennis career.
Right.
And yeah, that's when I really started to compete. I played a lot of local tournaments in Spain as well because the the tournament platform there is incredible. We've got so many players over there, all at very high levels, and you get an incredible amount of variety in terms of game styles. You've got a tournament every single week at different levels, so that really contributed to the development of my game. And
Right.
afterwards, I transitioned into the Pro Tour, ITFs, and yeah, here we are now.
Okay. So, going back to when you were in Hong Kong, okay, you got the national championship of U12, and you until now your ranking is still very high. You still got a very high national ranking in Hong Kong,
Right.
and um, have you missed any local tournaments?
So actually, when I was playing in Hong Kong, I was quite um I was competing quite often in the local tournaments because I went on to becoming number 1 in under 16 and under 18. And in order to gain a ranking like that, you have to be pretty consistent in playing those local tournaments. Um, but I think once I realized that, wanted to take it further and really pursue it seriously, I prioritized the international competitions over the local tournaments.
Right.
But this was after I gained a good base and a good foundation in local competition.
Mhm.
So I think it was important for me to have those steps, having a good foundation with the local competitions, and
Right.
then seeing that I was doing well, then transitioning to the overseas. So
Okay.
yeah.
So when you say you have a solid foundation, it means that you basically play to semi-final, final, almost all all your tournaments, right?
Yes, that's true. That was one aspect, but these things don't always determine like results don't always determine your level as well. Because many times you could have the required level, but just be lacking a little bit in terms of the um, competition grind, but that's just something that you can accumulate through matches. So, even if you feel with your team, with your coaches and your family, if a student feels that they're ready to start hitting and competing at an overseas international level, then go for it. It's a team decision. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to start winning tournaments locally in order to be eligible to compete internationally. It really is quite personal, but for me personally, those are the steps that I took.
Okay. So let's move on to ATF. I really want to spend all the time talk about your profile. It's really amusing. Yeah, but we move on to ATF. So
Yeah.
when you say you have, when we have built a good foundation and the whole team decided that, oh, you're ready to go out and get some good exposures, overseas exposures. Okay. Um, at what age you started your first ATF tour?
Well, actually, before starting ATF, I had gone to the US to play in USTA tournaments when I was around 10. So I started traveling even earlier than playing ATF. But then after that summer in the US, I started at around maybe 10 and a half to start playing in ATFs. And
Right.
yes, ever since then until the age of around uh 12, 12 and a half, 13, I had been pretty consistent on the tour, playing a lot of tournaments around Asia. So around Korea, Bangladesh, Qatar, Thailand, all these countries. i was
Right.
uh, I was a pretty frequent competitor. Yes.
Okay, so ATF stands for Asian Tennis Federation. Okay,
Yeah.
so focus on countries in Asia and mostly for players under 14 and under 16.
Yes.
So I know that I like we have experienced that some coaches do not actually suggest us to play ATF.
Mhm.
Um, what is your view?
Yeah, I think that depends on the region that you're in or the country you're in. And for example, in Hong Kong, we don't have a lot of options in terms of local tournaments. It's not very frequent. There aren't a lot of tournaments in the calendar. And so before you get started with IT juniors, it's important that, if your goal is to play competitive tennis, that you're competing as much as possible. And so before the eligibility for ITF juniors, which is 13 years of age, you have this incredible platform with ATF where, as soon as you turn 10, you can already be playing these overseas tournaments. And it's another platform that guarantees match play. And even better, it's a first and early glimpse of that pro tour life. You're traveling around to different countries, playing against new people, building connections, really understanding how these platforms work. And I think for me, it was an invaluable experience, and it's something that definitely aided my achievements later in the future. Because when you get started from a young age with all of these experiences, they accumulate and they prepare you better for that pro life later on.
Right. And you have also mentioned the countries that you went to. Which one do you um, like the most?
Again, probably for a superficial reason, but I played the championships in Qatar, and and I really liked it because I remember I was super excited about the prize that they gave us. They gave us some iPods, and
Really?
yes, I had won both the singles and doubles, so I had gotten two, and I was super thrilled about it. So maybe it
Right.
was a little superficial reason, but I really did enjoy that tournament. The organization was amazing, the facility was beautiful, and I mean, just to top it off, the cherry on the cake was the prizes.
Of course, give you a very, very good memory too.
Yes.
Okay. So what is the next? We quickly move to ITF Junior. Okay.
Yeah.
So the International Tennis Federation Junior Circuit.
Yeah.
So you must have played a lot of ITF Junior tournaments. Where did you go?
Yeah, so I had quite a clear plan for how to structure my junior career. And so, when we're talking about starting out, the most important thing in the beginning at least is to try, and other than gaining experience, is to gain those points. So when I first started out, I tried to look for countries that don't have as strong of an acceptance list in terms of players. So I really looked at countries in Asia and Africa, and I tended to avoid Europe and the Americas in general. Um, and this is quite important because it's important that you are able to gain some points in the beginning so that you can consolidate your place in those draws so that you don't remain an alternate, gaining points in easier countries so you can gain acceptance into qualifying draws and eventually main draws. And then eventually you can target tournaments in Europe and the Americas if you want to keep going down that juniors path. Yeah.
Some coaches tell us that um, um, winning the first point in ITF is very, very important. And so you may take Adi's advice of choosing a right place to go, okay, and get a good acceptance list or a better job for your players, okay? So, the ITF Junior, I always have a question in mind. Does the ITF Junior, they also count by the past 52 weeks, right?
Yes.
Um, are they, I know it's a stupid question, but I really want to know if the ITF Junior points carry forward to the ITF adult game, or how are they, um, how does everything work?
Okay, so the thing is, first, when it comes to ranking, they take your six best singles tournaments and then a quarter of the doubles tournaments, and it's a combined ranking. So both the singles and doubles are combined, and you get a number for your ITF junior ranking. And with this, The points that you earn in juniors, it does not carry forward into the professional league, but there are some benefits that you obtain if you gain a good ranking in the junior circuit. So, for example, if you manage to become top 100 in the ITF junior circuit, then you're able to secure a spot as a junior reserve in those ITF professional tournaments in 15K tournaments. And this is quite important. So when I was playing in the junior circuit, I had stopped a little earlier when I was around 15. I had a ranking of 205, and I decided to stop in order to focus more on the professional circuit. But had I known, like right after I stopped was when they had introduced that junior reserve um, rule. Had I known that they would have implemented it, then I would have tried to stay a little longer in the junior circuit just so I could have obtained that top 100 ranking. Because right now, acceptance into these professional tournaments, if you don't have any sort of ranking, is quite difficult since it's very competitive and tennis is only growing. So this is where it'll make your life a lot easier if you have a good ranking in those junior tournaments. And even more when you're ranked top 30 and above, you gain other benefits like acceptances into the main draws of bigger tournaments, challengers and W 50s, 75s, and 100s. So there are a lot of benefits to it. Even though the points don't carry over, you gain entries into a lot of those bigger tournaments.
Okay. So, what you mean also, what about the ATF? Does the ATF ranking or points have anything to do with ITF?
No, they're separate organizations and they don't carry over.
Okay, so basically, if we plan for our young children or young players, um, you will get a separate ITF ranking and points. You will get a separate ATF ranking and points.
Yes.
And how about the local
So
rank?
yeah, in terms of local, they don't really, the points don't carry forward. However, when you are playing in those junior tournaments, say you don't have a ranking yet. So first they'll check to see if you have your ITF junior ranking when they're trying to accept you into the list. So if you don't have that, what they'll look at next is if you have an ATP or WTA ranking. And depending on that, they will give you a spot in the main draw at the bottom of the list or in the qualifying draw at the bottom of the list. But say you don't have an ATP or WTA ranking either, what they'll look at next is your world tennis number. And here is when your local ranking is quite important because the higher your local ranking is, the more priority you'll have in that list to get into those ITF junior tournaments. So even though, again, the points don't carry over, there is a system when it comes to the acceptance list that if you don't have a prior ITF junior ranking or ATP or WTA, then your local ranking will take precedence. And that is important when you are applying to certain tournaments.
Okay, and to ITF Junior, up to what age that you can play?
Up to 18 until
to 18.
Yeah, so say you turn 18 in April, you can still play until the end of the year. So that's how it works. Yeah.
Okay, and then when uh, do players usually start their ITF tour if they are looking for or to pursue even further professional development in tennis?
Right. So this is quite personal as well. It really depends on your specific journey. But I think as a general rule, I would say that once you turn 15, 16, you're able to compete with players on that professional tour. Um, uh, Maybe it might be a little later for boys, maybe a year later, 17 or so, but for girls at least once you're 15, 16, I think that's a good time to start stepping into the professional professional tour. Still maybe maintaining a good balance with the juniors tournaments. But then once you reach 16 and above, I think the president should be in the professional circuit, because it might seem daunting, but I think there's a misconception that players playing in the professional circuit are playing much faster and much harder and at a higher level at a higher pace. But once you're in those later teenage years, those differences really start to diminish. And when you put yourself in those situations of that professional league, you start to realize that in terms of rallies, you're able to hang on, you're able to hold on, and you can hold your ground. Obviously, the differences then come with experience and mental aptitude, but that's something that can be learned over time. So I would say don't try to limit yourself in terms of pursuing those bigger leagues just because you may think you're not ready. Give it a try first when you're 15, 16, and then you'll see that you're able to keep up.
Okay, so in order to play the ITF, the real game, does the player have to get a few points from ITF Junior Tour?
No. You can start in the professional ITF tour without any points whatsoever. But this is where certain things come into play. If you don't have a ranking, your local ranking helps you gain acceptance into lists. And obviously, if you have a really good junior ranking, you get reserved spots in the main draws of events. And so even though the points or ranking doesn't necessarily carry over, it allows you to gain acceptance into these draws, which is also incredibly important when you're just starting out.
Okay, so during a year, 52 weeks, how many tournaments do you suggest, from junior to competitive or even professional players? How many tournaments do you suggest to play? Or in the past, how many, what was your suggestion?
Yeah, so with the ITF juniors, play as much as you can. I know that there are restrictions on age. Those really don't help. I don't think that's ideal, but play to your cap to the max, and then play more tournaments locally if you can. So the thing is, when I got to Spain, I was under the tutelage of a top 60 ATP player. His name is Joan Balcells, and he had beaten Nadal and Federer and had won the first Davis Cup for Spain in the year 2000. And so he had an incredible amount of experience in the Pro Tour. And one of the first things that he told me was that, you got to be in it to win it. So what that means is competing at least 30 weeks a year, 30 weeks a year, and I really, when I was competing professionally, I was really trying to emanate that, because I myself personally, I felt a huge difference when I was consistently competing. It gives you match practice, it takes you into the zone, you're able to adapt better, and it just gives you so much experience that you can never replicate in a training session. So competing as much as you can, but once you reach that pro level, I would say around 30 weeks a year, or even more if you can.
Okay, so I have okay, this question here. At what point, um, when a player start playing their ITF, okay, at what point they will gain their ATP or WTA points and get into the big game?
Yeah, so usually this happens. So first, it can happen when you qualify for a 15K. You have a chance of getting a point. The thing is that in terms of ranking, it's a little different for the men and the women. So for the men, they just need one ATP point and they'll be able to obtain their ranking. For the women, you need 3 WTA points. from separate tournaments to gain your ranking. However, if you are an exceptional case and you win a 15K tournament, then you automatically gain your ranking. It doesn't have to be, the points don't have to be from 3 separate tournaments. Additionally, though, I think it's important to note that the ITF and ATP and WTA circuits are different. So the ITF circuit actually has their own ranking system, and it comprises of $15,000 and $25,000 tournaments for the men. And for the women, it comprises of 15,000, 25, 50, 75, and 100. So it's a little different because then for the men after the 15 and 25s, it goes on into the Challenger Tour and then it goes on into the ATP Tour. Whereas for the women, it's the ITF Tour and then the WTA Tour. So there's a little bit of a differentiation there, but all in all, the point system when it comes to WTA points is the same. So just the difference is that, you know, they introduced this separate system for ITFs just to make the transition into the pro tour a little easier and a little accessible. Yeah.
Okay. So can you also share with us how ITF points or playing that at that level, how does it help with the college application?
Yeah. So in terms of pursuing professional tennis, I think usually kids in Hong Kong are faced with two, you know, options, either pursuing college tennis or professional tennis. But, you know, sorry?
More on the education side.
Yes, yeah, that's what I've heard. And the great thing now is that you know, these international platforms are collaborating with colleges, especially in the US, to make a transition after college tennis into professional tennis. So it's not as if you have to choose one or the other anymore. And this is through a college accelerator program where the top 5 players in the NCAA, and the NCAA is an interschool tournament in the US for colleges. So, yeah, so the top 5 players of that NCAA ranking and the winner of the NCAA tournament, both in men's and women's, they gain main draw entries into different WTA and ATP tournaments. And so, you know, I think it's a great way to encourage that transition into the professional tour, because now more than ever, college tennis has been increasing in their level and it's very competitive and such a good platform to develop your competitive game even more while still acquiring an education. And, you know, if you're doubting whether to pursue it or not because you also want to become professional, I still think it's a great option, even though I myself did not take it. It is a great stepping stone for getting into that professional tour after you gain a degree. So I would really encourage parents to look into that college accelerator program. And, you know, I think maybe there's also a little bit of a tendency to sort of relax in terms of pursuing excellence when kids decide that they don't want to go professional. But, you know, and, you know, when they decide that they just want to play college tennis. But, you know, I think that having this mindset of trying to become the best you can be and the continuous pursuing of excellence, it'll really allow you to you know, give yourself that option of pursuing professional tennis in the future after your college degree. You know, even if you don't feel like it at 18, you never know after your college experience playing in those matches and being in that environment whether you'd want to pursue professional tennis later on either. So don't relax in terms of preparation when you're younger. You know, continuously try to become the best you can be so that you're giving yourself that option later on in the future.
Right. So you mentioned about how you plan the future. Um, will you do the same thing, or will you make some changes of your plan, like your journey since three years old? um,
Yeah.
right. Will you pursue the same journey?
In general, I definitely would. I think maybe one slight change that I would make in terms of platforms is maybe staying in the junior circuit for a bit longer to obtain that top 100 ranking, but only a bit longer because I don't want to stay until I'm 18, maybe just a year or so more. But I think other changes that I would make are more in terms of, paying a little more attention to your mental training, because that really does make an incredible difference. When I went to Spain, I started working with a sports psychologist, and that was truly when I noticed the most improvement in my game. And also from a young age, being very attentive to your fitness preparation and injury prevention, because that truly is the key to a long career. And I think we sort of have this misconception that on-court training is the most important thing, but that is not true. That's only a fifth of maybe your whole preparation, after you take into consideration nutrition, fitness, injury prevention, and mental training and movement. These things are so incredibly important that it's important to really pay attention to all the other areas if you want to have a long career. Yeah.
Right. So going back to how um, should parents or players focus more on local or overseas tournaments, like you said, that in different stages they basically have to change plan according to their development and their age and of course their status. And if we are talking about the some at some point, if the player is quite ready to go, encourage them to play overseas tournaments.
Yes.
Right. And this is how the ranking are constructed locally. So junior ranking, national ranking. So even if you basically stop playing local tournaments, okay, and you start your overseas tourneys like ATF, ITF, um, and so on. Basically, will also give you a some very good points to accumulate your to build up your junior ranking or national ranking, right?
Yeah.
And a little bit on UTR, because I know that is quite a long Zoom talk, and that by playing the Hong Kong CTA, CRC, ATF, ITF, basically you will receive a UTR profile and you will also receive a UTR ranking too. Okay, so a lot of Hong Kong players, they basically don't know that they already have a UTR profile. So if any one of you want to learn more about that or check your own UTR profile, you can WhatsApp me, okay, and then I'll check it. Claiming UTR profile. So, what tournaments should players focus on? I think that we have quite a clear idea from Ken and from Coach Adi. So we move on to our Q&A session. If anyone has a question for Ken or Adithya or Anyone have any questions? Okay. If not, then we thank you everyone for joining this Zoom talk, and thank you very, very much for Ken and Adithya for sharing your experience and your tennis journey.
Thank you, Janet, for inviting me.
Right. I'm sure we can find other topics to talk about. And,
Sure.
yes, and this Zoom talk will be posted on YouTube. So if anyone have further questions, you may also WhatsApp me, okay, and then I'll send it out to Ken or Adithya, or we'll get you an answer somewhere from the community group. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.